Hi, everybody. Welcome to a very special report of Cannabis Coast to Coast News. I'm PCM TV founder Jimmy Young, and I'm so happy to be joined by a guy that I consider to be a friend. Okay, George, I hope you feel that way about me as well.
Absolutely.
This is George Jage. He's the founder of MJ Unpacked. So, George, we're in the middle of a crazy time. You want to let the dog out?
He's good.
Who let the dog out? That's what I'd like to know. Let's talk about what's going on in this country right now with the tariffs. We all know we have a new administration in place. I don't want to get this into a political discussion. However, the silence is deafening from Washington, D.C. about any of the progress that was made over the last administration here. And now the tariffs that are in place are impacting an industry that's already on the verge of collapse. How difficult is it to be in the cannabis space these days?
Well, I was actually listening to Fareed Zakaria this morning, and his kind of does his weekly take, and he said that with tariffs, this is basically setting up for the largest amount of corruption ever in the history of our government, and once you start imposing these tariffs, large corporations and governments line up to pay homage to the then person in power to cut special deals. And, that's what we're seeing right now, unfortunately. And I've been pretty outspoken in my political opinions, but I'll refrain from them here. It's the good, there's good, bad, right? I mean, listen, all of the weed in our country that is in the legal cannabis market is grown domestically. So we don't have a tariff issue there. What obviously this affects and where you're seeing a lot of pressure is in the packaging companies and in the hardware companies that are making any type of vape products. A lot of that stuff originates out of China. Most of it was developed for e-cigarettes, as we know, and has been modified since to handle a more viscous liquid known as cannabis concentrate. So I don't know. I don't know if the tariffs are necessarily going to impact the cannabis industry directly, other than those two really kind of specific suppliers, of course. But as the economy tanks, cannabis is kind of in that kind of alcohol like recession-proof position where when times are good, people want to celebrate. When times are bad, people want to drown their sorrows. So, cannabis could actually benefit from a down economy. Unfortunately, I'd hate to see it, but as things get tougher and tighter out there in the real world, and as the working class continues to get bled and grifted out of the money that they hope to have gained from this new administration, I think people are going to be looking for alternative methods to relax and take the stress off. And cannabis is still growing. It's still a growth industry. It is capital starved, but it is a growth industry. So as soon as we start putting that water on the plants, the money in the industry will start seeing growth again.
And how long is that going to take, George? You don't have to answer that because none of us know, right?
None of us know.
Okay, good job. There is a lot of doom and gloom in the industry right now. I'm as the new administration comes in and continues to put prohibitionists in key positions, like Terrence Cole, the new head of the DEA.
Terrence. We got to get rid of Terrence. I mean, it was certainly disappointing to see, like, when the new administration came in. I mean, to think about the fact that we were all excited to see somebody as incompetent as Matt Gaetz be potentially put in a position of the Department of Justice, only from the fact that we know that he likes to do drugs. That's how kind of dire the situation is, that we would be accepting of somebody that incompetent.
Yeah, well, or it's got to be an improvement over what was there before with Ann Milgram and the inside trading for the prohibitionists to be the ones that would be at the hearing that was eventually postponed and then discontinued, and it's still in the state of suspended animation. Nobody knows what's going to happen with the DEA.
Well, I think this is part of the problem where we haven't seen any progression in any type of federal cannabis policy reform. It's a function of Citizens United. We just don't have enough money to pay off the right officials yet.
Yeah.
The industry just doesn't have the capital to go and compete with the lobbyists from the other industries that are against this. Certainly, alcohol's kind of been on the sidelines. Some alcohol companies are investing in cannabis
Right.
here. Others are kind of prohibitionists because it's going to take away from their vice sales. But it's just I don't think that we've had a lot of different organizations, a big alphabet soup from MPP to Students for Sensible Drug Policy, NCIA, Attach, U.S. Cannabis Council. I mean, we're starting to see some consolidation of those efforts, which I'm happy to see. We need to pool resources. We have limited resources. We are fighting ultimately a guerrilla warfare, strategy here, where we need to kind of make those incremental gains, day by day, and street fight this to the end.
Yeah. And again, it's so funny because if you look back, if this was 20 years ago, everybody would say, really? You have that many states legalized adult use? Really? You have that many states have decriminalized it? What are you complaining about? Right? I mean, there's been tremendous progress, but that green rush turned into a green wall very fast.
I mean, we can certainly, Monday morning quarterback this too. I mean, we're putting basically government officials in charge of regulating the industry with, and they make a lot of mistakes. They certainly seek counsel and get industry input. And there's been some really smart people and some really, brave people that have gone and advocated and helped create these state markets. But each state market's done differently. It's built from the ground up. So you have all of these different models across the entire state and then that again limits anybody's ability to create any type of operational efficiency, right? I think the big MSOs, their play was, we're going to create the footprint, we're going to acquire assets all over the place, and then we'll consolidate this. We'll get rid of the 280 tax code. We'll be able to kind of centralize our manufacture and cultivation. It just hasn't happened. And it's certainly limited the growth opportunities.
And the spin now, you mentioned alcohol. Is it time? I mean, some alcohol companies, both in Canada and certainly in North America, are getting into the hemp space, the infused beverage space. Even you, I think you shared with me that there's going to be a hemp beverage show coming up. That seems to be where the biggest growth is right now. And yet, isn't there a danger to getting into that side? Because Congress is still in the position to say no THC infused beverages should be sold anywhere. But it's too big a business now, isn't it?
It's an interesting space, and I've been certainly confounded by having this separate bifurcated market. Obviously you brought up before where a lot of states have gone through and decriminalized cannabis. And that decriminalization basically, makes it a slap on the wrist for somebody to be, carrying a certain amount of weed and distributing weed. And it really reduces the penalty for, the illicit market, which then kind of props that up and kind of sees the surge as you're trying to roll out this regulated, state market. But, this kind of 2018 Farm Bill loophole, when this kind of came about, it's taken a couple of years to really kind of percolate into the mass, and it is significant now. I'm absolutely against that, having this bifurcated industry that isn't taxed and regulated the same way cannabis is. And I'm not saying to tax and regulate the hemp industry the same way as cannabis. I would like to see, somewhere in the middle where the cannabis regulations can be decreased. Certainly the onerous, 280 tax, get rid of that. What I see is kind of the pros and cons, right? I mean, like, you've got a lot of garage gummies being manufactured and sold at gas stations. And I've talked to people, I've read the news stories, some kid or some person goes to a gas station, gets a gummy, and they're 100 milligrams, they're 50 milligrams, and they're way too high dosed.
Right.
And then people end up having a psychotic episode or a traumatic experience, and they end up in the hospital. And guess what the news says?
Right.
Cannabis overdose.
Right.
Cannabis overdose. It's not
Right.
hemp-derived cannabis overdose. It's not 2018 Farm Bill approved cannabis overdose. It's a cannabis, overdose or hospitalization of some sort, and it's damaging our industry in a significant way. I don't think that gummies should be sold at gas stations or convenience stores, and certainly nothing of that high dose. I love the beverage category, and I don't think that the THC beverages have never gotten any traction because often, retailers aren't putting in cooler cases. It's not something that people are going to a cannabis store often for. There's been some successful cannabis, beverages, Keef Cola, name one. But, they just don't get the traction. And now that you don't have that owner's tax burden and you have the ability to retail this product into liquor stores and convenience stores and to gas stations where they can be age restricted, which is a mandatory thing that needs to happen for the hemp beverage category. You have this huge opportunity to engage a totally new demographic. I mean, like, we are Americans, we love to drink beverages. We love flavor profiles. So it's a really easy category for us to move into. And I've always believed that if we can replace the intoxicant, not the social lubrication, cannabis could be a multi-$100 billion industry in very quick order. This could be, in-home consumption, out-of-home consumption, going to the tailgate, the ballpark, restaurant. You and I could go have a 3 Granddaddy purple martini lunch if we wanted to, Jimmy. I'm driving.
You mean
No,
you
I'm
don't?
kidding.
You mean you don't? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I couldn't
So
resist.
I think, I love the opportunity that this presents. And it's still got the same type of regulatory risks that cannabis does. I'm going to, cite Missouri again as one of the best run state markets in our country. And I wish other states would take some lessons from them. And I don't know if it's a number of factors. I mean, you've got great leadership in the state association with MoCan Trade. The people that came together to help found the industry came from a variety of backgrounds. People like Mitch Myers and John Pennington, and others from Good Day Farms, and the backstories where they're coming from pharmacy, CPG, and other spaces to really help build that industry. I love what they've done with the micro licenses to kind of create a farm club where they can trade amongst themselves. We'll see how that evolves in time, but give them an opportunity to kind of get a foothold in kind of a micro license kind of way, and then give them license to move up to the big leagues based on success, right? So they don't have they don't have to go to market and start competing with a $50 million company. They can kind of compete with their peers. And then when they came out and banned hemp derived products, and they made a big push. They worked with the legislature to do so. They did a big public service campaign that I loved. It's like, know your cannabis retailer. And it would show a picture of a gas station and a convenience store, not a cannabis store. And what they did is they pushed this forward, and a lot of groups came to the table: alcohol, convenience, the hemp guys, the hemp cannabis people came to the table with the legislature, and they carved out hemp beverages at the last minute. And they're putting a 5 milligram dose cap on it. The hemp beverage industry would like to see a 10 milligram, dosage cap on it. Anything above 10 goes into the dispensary, so that there is a consultative process of people being able to, make sure that they know that there's 100 milligrams in this 5-hour energy shot that they're about to drink, because that's not for everybody.
Right.
So I love the space, and especially where you're seeing growth is especially in the southern states. That's why we're holding the Hemp Beverage Expo in Atlanta, kind of the de facto capital of the South. And it's states that don't have adult use cannabis. I'm from Wisconsin. I've got a lot of friends that are still in the bar industry and the beer industry up there, and they're killing it with the hemp beverages. They can't keep it on the shelves.
Right. Well, it's something new. Everybody likes novelty. Try something new. One of the biggest frustrations I find with the industry, of course, is the fact that you mentioned public service announcements. The fact that they limit messaging through traditional mass media, okay, and think they're doing a service to the public by doing that, by keeping people away from learning about this product, to me makes absolutely no sense, because we're all self-medicating and learning by doing whatever we are doing with the cannabis plant, whether that's through hemp or whether that's through the Delta 9 group. And I just don't understand why they think even the news that we do gets censored because they feel like we're pushing a drug onto the public. And I'm saying to myself,
we all know you're a drug dealer.
What's that?
I said, we all know you're a drug dealer.
Well, I mean, are you looking into my closet or what? I mean,
my son, when he was in 3rd grade, went and told his teachers, like the teacher asked, what do your parents do? And he told his parents, my dad sells marijuana. So I called her up and I'm like, listen, I said, I just want to clarify what my son said in school today. I don't sell marijuana. I help people who sell marijuana sell more marijuana.
Right.
And, made sure that there was a distinction there. But that being said, I mean, we're living in this kind of post-truth, dystopia at the moment. Right. And, I think a lot of the discord in American politics and in society is a function of, people being able to, spout statements and purport them as truths, right? Because you can create a little breadcrumb trail on your Twitter feed to back up anything, these days. And I just think that it's tough because there is still a tremendous amount of misconceptions about cannabis. And again, as I was referring to regarding the hemps and people selling 100 milligram gummies at the gas station, they're telling people this is cannabis. My friend in Atlanta, she called me up and she's like, my husband and I, we bought some gummies. We took them. We were in the back of an ambulance 5 hours later. And, can I go to the dispensary and ask them to pay for my medical bills? I said, where are you living? She goes, Georgia. I said, you don't have adult use dispensaries there. And it was a CBD store.
Yep, that's right. And again, the testing, it's out of control. People have to understand it's a medicinal product that's going to impact your brain, okay, at some point. And whether you're a teenager or a 20 something or a 50 something or an 80 something, you must start low and go slow when you're exposed to a new product like this. When I was growing up, the drinking age was 18. And I didn't realize I was allergic to hops at age 15, but I figured it out by the time I was in my 30s because I couldn't drink more than 3 beers without getting sick. And everybody hates getting sick. Let's face it. We do. We don't. Drinking to excess is still not something I think a lot of people go out there to do on purpose. Okay. That being said, you don't take cannabis with the purpose of going to the hospital, having an uncomfortable experience. You need to learn how to use it properly. And is the educational message getting out to the newbies that are out there? That's what by the way, I predict every time, and I like it when I'm right once in a while, that every new state is going to run a story within 6 months. Oh, emergency room visits are up because of the cannabis thing. And I'm like, because people are just stupid. They're not learning about the product, and they're certainly not starting low and going slow. Is this human behavior, though?
It is. I mean, I think we have so much work to do societally on understanding addiction and and listen, I mean, the world gets faster and faster every day, which also means it gets more stressful. And we're in this again generational period where attention spans are down. We're constantly being fed opportunities to become more addicted to some game on our phone or some social media app that's algorithmically programming our brains to feed off of that addiction, cycle. And, it's like any muscle, right?
Yeah.
If you work it a lot, it's going to get stronger and stronger. So if we're continuing to work that addiction muscle in our brain, so to speak, it's just going to, increase addiction amongst other products in society. I mean, this is, I think there was obviously, going back, we've both been in the industry a long time. When the market started open, like I think everybody's like, I'm going to create some weed with 38% THC in it. And, this is so far distant from, people talking about, well, actually, I think Terrence is somebody saying who's made comments about, because of the increased potency in weed, it's leading to school shootings, which is, again, complete false statement. But
he has a pulpit for that. That's a huge difference.
Yeah, I'm a big fan and I'm a big proponent of dad weed, as I like to refer to it, but I don't want to be exclusionary. It can be mom weed too.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I like weed that's, got, kind of a high single digit, mid, teens, like type of THC balance with some CBD. And there's some people we have speaking at our show talk about this, that we've kind of created this like monoclonal kind of banana syndrome where we're trying to race to isolate as much THC in the products as possible. And we're kind of alienating this abundance of minor cannabinoids that have tremendous impact on our experience when we get high, as well as from a human health standpoint. So, right. I don't know. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I like the dispensary model. I like dispensaries that have a very well-trained and educated staff that can help somebody on their journey explore this as a new category. We know that the stoners, the people who are already, kind of high consumption cannabis people, are driving most of the sales in the market. It's not a lot of new customer acquisition. Mm-hmm. The beverage category, like I said, a lot of people don't want to smoke. They don't want to, inhale a combustible product. Obviously, we've got a lot of PSAs going on around vaping and teenage vaping, which is very predominant, both for mm-hmm. cannabis and nicotine. Mm-hmm. Gummies are kind of like, I want to go out and have a couple of beers with you, Jimmy. It's not like we're going to go out, hey, let's, cut this gummy in half, each eat a half, and then sit there and talk for a couple hours. I would love to do that with you, by the way. But the, it's just, you need that social opportunity, right? Like you and I could go have a couple of cannabis drinks, get a little goofier as the night goes on. I don't know if you and I can get any goofier, to be honest, but you know, I just think that we do have to have an opportunity of educating people and giving them the right product. And people that go in and they smoke some weed and like, oh, it made me really sleepy. Like there's other products that are going to have a different impact on them. So, again, using people's genomics to kind of identify strains that work well with their desired outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe measured microdosing actually is the future of this industry at some point because I'm involved with a company that has come up with a delivery program to do just that. However, let's get to your event, shall we? Let's talk about MJ Unpacked in Atlantic City. I'll tell you, I was at your first one in Vegas. I was at your second one in New York. Okay. So this will be my return. But in between, you guys seem to be in a lot of different places now.
Sure. The original intent for building out MJ Impact and again, having built MJ BizCon and I saw what it became and how much they lost control of their audience. I mean, everybody in the industry kind of knows that all the decision makers, they might go there as kind of a placeholder on their calendar, but they're not actually attending the show. There's really not a value proposition for them to go. And it's just become overwhelming and kind of a big boondoggle in a lot of cases. We saw a need really just to create an event that we believe that cannabis is going to become a consumer packaged goods industry, and that the end game for the trade show space is going to look a lot more like the Natural Products Expo or the Fancy Food Show, consumer electronics. I mean, where brands are really the predominant exhibiting group on the floor. Now we're building a national consumer packaged goods style show without a national market. So, it's certainly, caused some constraints. But kind of the genesis of kind of our movements around the country. We started the show. We got funded right before the pandemic. We were going to run a series of state focused events because that's where the market lives. But coming out of the pandemic, we said, listen, let's just push this to a national platform right away. We did our first one in Las Vegas during MJ BizCon because we wanted to show how disruptive and different the model could be. And people walked out of there with their kind of hair blown back. We felt that, putting our event in the East Coast where most of the market growth was going to be really important for us. We wanted to kind of build a spring, fall, east, west type of model. And New York was great. The market stalled on being able to roll out effectively, all the history and the problems there. Midtown Manhattan is not a cheap place to do an event. And we wanted to stay on the East Coast. So we did move our spring show to Atlantic City last year. It was incredibly successful. This year is going to be over the top. We're planning on staying there for the foreseeable future, at least on the East Coast in that area. But our fall show in Las Vegas, after we came back a second year, we just saw this kind of implosion of the West Coast market. I mean, California is obviously the dominant, driver of the West Coast market. And it just, herbal was shutting down. People were getting stuck, not of their fault, but retailers weren't paying their bills, so the brands didn't get their money. And this caused a lot of collateral damage out on the West Coast. And Washington remains a pretty kind of closed market with a lot of caps on scale of how many operations somebody can own. And we kind of looked around and we looked at markets that had a very large amount of license holders. Because those represent potential attendees to our event or exhibitors at our event. So, a state like Illinois, where, 4 or 5 companies own 80% of the market's not going to, be good for our event per se to really draw attendance. So we went to Michigan, we went to Detroit. It was a great show. It was our smallest show because we kind of spun it up late notice. And there's a couple other events that were in Michigan at the time. But Michigan's booming, and it was always kind of a flyover state. You saw at one point it was bigger than California's market. I think it's since receded. And then we looked at other states that we could bring our fall show, and we looked at Missouri, and it's like this is definitely a state that people have flown over and really missed the mark. And you looked at the sales growth, you look at the diversity of license holders. I mean, it is a little bit verticalized. I love verticalization from an operational efficiency standpoint, but I think that bifurcating the market at some point between product and retail is going to make sense. But Missouri's a great market, and it's kind of hitting a lot of emerging states. I mean, hopefully we'll see Kansas, Nebraska at some point kind of get in line. Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas. You got a lot of states there. It's bordering Illinois. Ohio's a short flight. So we like Missouri, and we've moved around, and we're going to continue to do our events in 2025. We're going to be in Missouri this year. Next year, we're planning on being in Missouri again. We'll probably be in Kansas City because of the World Cup. We'll move out of St. Louis where they've got some. Yeah, you excited about that, huh?
Oh, yes. Hey, look, I had a credential in '94. I got to interview Pele, okay,
Oh,
and Diego Maradona. The difference is Pele spoke in English and Diego spoke in Portuguese, and I had no idea who that was. No idea what he was saying. So I had to recruit a guy from the woods who had snuck into the practice, and I said, "Would you like to be the voice of Maradona?" And he went, "Oh my God, oh my God!" Right? And he was, and it was a great little story and all this. But I digress. Look, how about a quick plug? When is the Atlantic City show?
yeah, and I want to tell you. So we've continued to evolve the show, right? Like
Yeah.
we're part of our strategy is meet the market where it's at, right?
Okay.
And also kind of lead it to where it needs to go. So we're making some big changes to our event this spring in Atlantic City. It's April 29th to May 1st. It's at the Hard Rock Hotel in Atlantic City, New Jersey. You're gonna have to fly into Philadelphia and get a car down to Atlantic City. If you book on American and your flight shows you landing in Philly and getting to Atlantic City, it's actually a bus you load up on the tarmac, so don't get fooled by that. So the one thing that we're doing first is we're kind of balancing our conference program. We usually in the past we've kind of done a full day of programming day one, a half day day two, and none on day three, kind of figuring people want to move to the exhibit hall floor. But we're doing a half day in the afternoon on day one, morning. So it's kind of more balanced for the conference program. The
There you
last
go.
day, we're actually opening the event up to bud tenders and staff at licensed operators. As you know, you have to be a licensed operator with the title of manager or higher to attend MJ Unpacked, or an accredited investor actively investing in the space, or a research scientist doing something meaningful in cannabis. And that's to kind of create a very curated, elevated audience. So last day, we want to bring those bud tenders in. This is a huge opportunity for brands to engage with the bud tenders, which they love doing. It's an opportunity for the bud tenders to come, learn more about those brands and also the products and technology that's driving the industry forward. These are the future managers and possibly entrepreneurs in our industry. So that last day when we're bringing the bud tenders in with the bud tender pass, we're also having an industry night and MJU Cannabis Cup. It's our first Cannabis Cup. We had over 100 and I think 20 entries to the cup. Some really amazing products being entered. We partnered with Green Flower Media to have level 2 ganjiers evaluate all the cannabis. They've got their SAP app, which is a standardized methodology for testing and tasting and evaluating concentrates and flour. They developed one specifically for digestibles, so we could add those gummies and those chocolate bars and those beverages in there too. So we're super excited about that. Going to be a full kind of Oscars type moment. We're going to have all the winners sealed in envelopes and announce them live at the industry night event. And we're going to have our signature open or official after party. We're partnering with Fairchild Events. They're really the de facto largest cannabis kind of event producer in the country at this point, from a kind of a consumer or kind of festival standpoint. And James Zahodny over there, the CEO, and I had a chance to work together at Dope Magazine. And he's brilliant. He's a really, really good event producer. So he always brings some really fun, engaging kind of experiential types things. So we're doing our official after party at the Steel Pier. We're going to have the Ferris wheel. We're going to have the big bungee sling thing where people can really get high. And we're going to have some carnival games. We're going to have some food. We're going to have some activations. It's going to be consumption friendly. Yeah, we're pretty excited about it.
5 hours, 23 minutes. I'll be driving down. I've already done the map,
All right.
so I look forward to that. George, I got to tell you, you're a wealth of information. You know your stuff. You understand the industry. If there ever will be a commissioner of the industry, I'm going to nominate you, okay? Because I think you have a very balanced view of this plan. Just saying. Fair
Thank
enough?
you. Listen, and we're part of our ethos and our entire team, and we've got some really amazing people. My life partner and business partner Kim, Wendy Campbell. Again, I had a chance to work with her at Dope Magazine. Leads our sales team, and she's just exceptional. But throughout our organization, we're very blessed to have a great group of people that are really passionate about what we do, and what we do is help people be more successful. Like when we get to see that outcome, or we hear them say, the impact that our event had on their business, that's our tip jar, and fills our bucket every day.
There you go. And that's how I feel about when I produce my news, Cannabis Coast to Coast news every week, because my vision was to document the fight to end cannabis prohibition. And if I look back on our app and I see the 4 or 5 years of coverage that we've done, or I've done, or we've done as a team, I'm thrilled, because I feel like I have been part of history and I have been documenting it, and it's all there. Now, I'd really like to.
Hope it happens in yours and my lifetime, right?
That I hope, but my lifetime's probably a little shorter than yours, but that's okay. Let's not worry about that.
There's a lot of hard miles on this body, but
that's right. But
hopefully both of us have a lot of years left in it.
And more importantly, let's live for tomorrow, because that's how I look now. Okay, every day is an adventure, and every day is a journey, and I really enjoy looking around and kind of smelling the air. Right? Yeah. Smelling the air and being able to walk. I've had some issues with that too. So the bottom line is, I'm looking forward to seeing you at MJ Unpacked. Do your thing. Thank you for allowing me to get down there and be credentialed and cover it the way I like to cover it. And I look forward to seeing you in a few weeks.
Jimmy, you are one of the most effervescent and unsinkable people I've ever met in the industry. Listen, you warm up every room, you come in with a smile. I don't think I've ever not seen you smiling. And listen, life throws us a lot of curveballs. You shared with me, getting some bionic work done on your shoulders and stuff. Got to keep your head up and, spread the gospel, spread the good word that here is some plant medicine that is really transformative, and not for everybody, but is really making a difference in people's personal lives and in society as a whole. We just got to keep grinding and not give up the fight. Like I said, we're fighting a guerrilla warfare here, that we need to, meet people where they're at and have those conversations of why cannabis can be a much safer and better alternative to any type of self-intoxication or medication that they want to do. And we'll win them over one at a time, Jimmy.
Yeah. Hey, look, I'm very grateful for the life I've had, from sports guy to weed guy. Come on. Right? I mean, I'm very fortunate and grateful. I just got to keep surviving every day, because that's the mantra, is survive to thrive. And we're getting there. We're getting there. For George Jage, I am PCM TV founder Jimmy Young. We will have more special reports on Cannabis Coast to Coast news in the future. Thanks for watching.
I think I messed up. Did you know there's a place that covers all the cannabis news you need? Welcome to Cannabis Media, your go-to for all things cannabis. PCM is the CNBC of weed, bringing you the latest news and talk shows with a twist. We've got 16 state correspondents and multimedia journalists from around the US and Canada.
Hey everybody, it's Brandon Jones with Big Green Distribution with the Missouri Cannabis Report.
I'm Karen Black from Greenfinger Consulting with the Arizona Cannabis Report.
I'm Amy Carter from Michigan Weedsters.
Andrew Behringer here reporting from Washington, D.C.
Debbie Fazy with the Canadian Toke of the Week.
It all started back in 2018 when founder Jimmy Young kicked off the In the Weeds podcast. His mission? Documenting the fight to end cannabis prohibition. Fast forward to today, and we've got Cannabis Coast to Coast with Elena Pinto, delivering the nation's only TV-style cannabis news show.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Cannabis Coast to Coast, PCM TV's weekly roundup of industry news from California to New York. I'm Elena Pinto.
As of August 2024, PCM has racked up over 1.2 million views and 14.5 million impressions on our YouTube channel. With 15,000 subscribers and growing, our reach is spreading like wildfire. PCM's website, YouTube, Rumble, Discord, Roku, Twitch, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and even our very own PCM TV app. Get your cannabis news fix with Cannabis Media. We're here to keep you informed and entertained. Stay tuned and stay lifted.